Africa in the 19th century was a diverse and dynamic continent. It was home to powerful empires, sophisticated trade networks, and rich cultural traditions. Many African societies were making strides in agriculture, craftsmanship, and governance. The continent was far from the static, uncivilized land often portrayed in European narratives. It was a place on the cusp of transformation, grappling with its own internal dynamics while facing growing external pressures. The arrival of European powers, driven by industrial ambitions and colonial aspirations, disrupted this trajectory. The demand for raw materials to fuel European factories, coupled with a sense of imperial rivalry, turned Africa into a prime target for conquest and exploitation. The stage was set for a tumultuous century that would leave an indelible mark on the continent and its people. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 stands as a stark symbol of European colonialism's brutal efficiency. In a Berlin conference room, European powers with no African representation carved up the continent like a pie. This arbitrary division disregarded existing ethnic boundaries, political systems, or the aspirations of the African people. The scramble for Africa, fueled by industrial greed and imperial hubris, had begun. The conference set off a frenzy of land grabs, with European powers racing to claim as much territory as possible. Treaties were signed with local rulers, often under duress or through deliberate misunderstandings. Military expeditions were dispatched to subdue resistance and assert control. The scramble for Africa was less about exploration and more about exploitation, marking the beginning of a new era of European dominance. The colonial powers, each with their own ambitions and approaches, left distinct legacies on the continent. Britain, with its vast empire, sought to secure strategic trade routes and resources. France aimed to expand its cultural influence and establish a colonial empire to rival Britain. Belgium, under the brutal rule of King Leopold II, treated the Congo Free State as his personal fiefdom, extracting rubber and ivory through horrific violence and exploitation. Colonial administrations implemented policies designed to assert control and maximize resource extraction. They imposed taxes, forced labor, and cash crop agriculture, disrupting traditional economies and social structures. They established new legal systems, often favoring European settlers and businesses. This systematic exploitation fueled European industries, while leaving many African communities impoverished and marginalized. Section 4. The human cost of colonialism. The human cost of colonialism was immeasurable. Millions of Africans suffered under forced labor regimes subjected to inhumane conditions and brutal punishments. Resistance was met with swift and often brutal repression, with countless lives lost in the struggle against colonial rule. The imposition of European cultures and beliefs led to the suppression of indigenous languages, traditions, and religions. The arbitrary borders drawn during the Berlin Conference continue to have repercussions today. Ethnic and tribal groups were divided, often pitted against each other in a strategy of divide and rule. This sowed the seeds of future conflicts, as post-colonial nations grappled with the legacy of these artificial divisions. Section 5. The long shadow of colonialism. The end of colonial rule did not erase the scars of exploitation and oppression. The legacy of colonialism continues to cast a long shadow over contemporary Africa. The continent still grapples with the challenges of underdevelopment, poverty, and political instability, often rooted in the structures and systems put in place during the colonial era. Yet, amidst these challenges, there is also hope and resilience. African nations are asserting their agency, working to overcome the legacies of the past and forge their own destinies. They are reclaiming their narratives, celebrating their rich cultures and histories, and demanding a more just and equitable future.